right. Thanks for joining us today. We're going to give people about a minute or so to get logged into today's webinar, and then we'll get going just after 11. We're still seeing that number increase in our attendance room. So we're going to just give people a minute or so or less here now to get logged in. All right. Well, it is just after 11 o'clock. So we're going to go ahead and get started with today's webinar. I'm Sarah Miller. I'm the Vice President of Marketing and Strategic Communications with the Small Business Association of Michigan. We're really pleased you've joined us today. A couple of housekeeping notes. This presentation is being recorded. We will share the recording and the slides with you later this afternoon or tomorrow morning, depending on how the day goes, to be quite honest. So within 24 hours or so, you'll have this in your inbox. Feel free to ask questions. You can use the Q&A feature here. We'll be checking that throughout the presentation, but we do encourage you to ask questions if something arises. And so with that, I'm going to turn it over to our friends from the State of Michigan Procurement Department, starting with Sean Vaughn. Sean, thanks for joining us today.
Absolutely. Thanks for the opportunity. So good morning. We always appreciate the opportunity to speak with potential vendors that want to work with the state. I'm Sean Vaughn, the Outreach Program Manager with the State of Michigan Procurement. And this morning, we're going to review the basics of how to do business with the state. Plus, we're going to talk about new initiatives that are geared towards increasing opportunities for geographically disadvantaged business enterprises. And we're also going to review the new Let's Do Business vendor website. I want to make sure we start off real early to say these slides will be available to you through Sarah. So I'll get those over. Plus, at any time, you can go to our website, which you'll learn more about in our presentation, to download copies of it as well. So we try to put as many resources on there for you. Today, I'm joined by my coworkers, Eric Pratt and Craig Terrell from Michigan Procurement Office. I love the waves. Eric is our Geographically Disadvantaged Business Specialist, and Craig is our office's Communication Specialist. And they're very knowledgeable in contracting with the state. So we're going to start off with Craig first. And I'm going to go to our slide. Like she said, you can ask us questions in the chat box. We'll do our best to get to those. But I'm going to go ahead and mute myself and turn my camera off so Craig can take the floor.
And good morning, everybody. A quick note about contracting. There is some contracting going on in my neighbor's house right there. So if I suddenly mute, it's because something loud is happening. They're getting their roof replaced or gutters or something, but fun little behind the scenes there. But my name is Craig, and we're going to talk about how does the state of Michigan do procurement? How do we buy things? So this is sort of how we're set up. We established contracts, central procurement. That's Eric, Sean, and I's office. We established contracts over $500,000 on behalf of state agencies. And we also set and implement the state's purchasing policies. We have a portfolio of about 800 multi-year central procurement contracts. They're worth billions of dollars in annual spend. Turns out it takes a few things to run a state day to day. And there's a full list of contracts on our website, which you can go and you can actually download and look at the contracts. We'll be showing you that list more comprehensively in a few slides. Just a quick look at some of the things we buy. They generally fall in these four large buckets. Commodities and professional services. That's exactly what it sounds like. It's the stuff and the services, both professional and like infrastructure services. IT, it's all the traditional IT stuff that you think of, but it's also contractors. So when the state of Michigan hires contractors that do IT work for specialty projects or hardware or software. Real estate services, the state of Michigan often leases spaces statewide. We use that wonderful example of Secretary of State office but we also rent out other offices, warehouses, parking lots, and laboratory space. Design and construction, I'll give you two guesses what that office does. They do design and construction projects. So all the construction-y, like what's going on next door. You got all your trades plus the construction, architectural. Those facilities need to be built and they need to be updated and they need to be maintained. And we contract out for a lot of that work. Next slide, we go in a little bit of depth. For the state of Michigan has a wide range of IT needs. That includes telecom, that includes hardware devices, custom developed software, mobile apps. The list in front of you is only a partial list. And we're going to talk a little bit about IT staff augmentation on the next slide. This is a big one. So if you're a vendor and you're interested in providing temporary IT staffing to the state, you should register with Knowledge Services. You go on our website, you can register. To register, visit DTMB IT staff augmentation homepage. Skill set for staff augmentation include, but are not limited to, what you see before you. Business analysts, developers, project managers, network engineers, and data architects. But Knowledge Services is the vendor that we have hired to manage IT staffing. For real estate, they manage their real estate division. They manage leases for the state, including, like we mentioned on the earlier slide, office spaces, labs, mixed use spaces, parking lots, warehouses. And if you're interested in leasing to the state of Michigan, you're a property owner, go to the link that is listed there, DTMB/services/real estate, and you can find out more how to do that. Design construction, they manage new facility construction, additions, renovations, and environmental cleanup and remediation work. No surprise, design construction services include construction, engineering, architectural, plumbing, HVAC, and other skilled trades. And the current bids for that kind of stuff will be on Sigma, which is something we'll be talking about coming up in the next few slides. Now we're going to go through some of how other state agencies work, especially where they have some differences. But we're going to use a very bureaucratic word for you. I promise it will make sense at the end of the slide. We have something that's called delegated authority. That means State of Michigan Procurement, because as we mentioned in one of our first slides, we handle policy, purchasing policy. We delegate that authority to individual state agencies. Those state agencies can make purchases up to $500,000. Each agency has its own office that makes those purchases. So DNR has their own purchasing office, for example, or Eagle, or any of the other departments that you can think of. There are some exceptions, like the Department of Health and Human Services and the Department of Correction have the authority to purchase all direct human services. When we say direct human services, we mean things like counselors or medical professionals, those kind of things. And then we have other purchasing agencies, specifically MDOT. This is kind of MDOT season right now. I know the state flower is in full bloom. Michigan Department of Transportation, they have a separate office for bridge and highway construction contracting. Federal funds are used for most projects and they require following federal regulations. They have their own disadvantaged business enterprise program that assists minority, women, and socially and economically disadvantaged business owners. Businesses must meet the federal DBE regulations. And if you are in that space and you're interested, contact MDOT. Their DBE office is great. Do not hesitate to contact them if you work in that space. And we have a web address if you would like to find out more. What about the small dollar purchase process? We get asked this one a lot. You might not be selling at that $500,000 level if you're invoicing typically under that $50K. Here's how that works. For solicitations under $50,000, we do not need to post those publicly. State agencies are still required to competitively bid the project. So we'll, the typical 3 bids process for a sale under 50K. You can market to agencies using the state agency buyer list, which is something that we post on our website. We update it about roughly quarterly. And you can go to michigan.gov/procurement, contact us. And I just updated it actually a few days ago. So it's as fresh as it's going to get. One thing we do tell vendors, treat that like a cold call sales list. State purchasing professionals do have no responsibility to call you back or buy what you are selling. But this makes you aware of the product. And I see Eric's hand is raised.
Yeah, Craig, thank you. Just wanted to just reiterate for the benefit of those in the meeting room, just to clarify, all purchases greater than $50,000 must be publicly posted, which we're going to show you where they're posted at shortly in the presentation. And for purchases less than $50,000, they do not have to be publicly posted. So in that instance, you may have to do some additional investigation and research for those smaller purchases.
Thank you. That's great and salient info. And we actually will be. Next slide is getting us ready for how can I do business with the state? So we gave you the basics. Now, how does it actually work? This is how it actually works. Register your business in Sigma vendor self-service. State of Michigan posts all bid opportunities in the Sigma VSS system. You must register and get a Sigma VSS account to bid on open solicitations. Let me read that again. You must register and get a Sigma VSS account to bid on open solicitations. Registration is free and is one system for bid posting, payment, and to manage your account info. So Sigma is actually where you also get paid if you win a State of Michigan contract, if you're awarded that contract. But this is where the state posts its bids. We don't post them anywhere else. If you're seeing like a third-party system, that's not necessarily a state bid, or they took it from us, or they took it from a school district or something. School districts post in Sigma also, but for their construction projects. Next slide just kind of shows you what Sigma looks like. Hot tip. We got a few of those today. Yep, thank you. Sean, we've been doing this enough where Sean knows exactly where I'm going with this. So if you scroll to the right, there's going to be a view open solicitations tab, and that is what we would call guest access. So if you want to poke around, like if you get done with this presentation, you're like, oh, I want to poke around Sigma a little bit. I want to see what bids look like, but you're not ready to like fully set up. Hit that little right button, you'll see view open solicitations, and that's guest access, and you can dig around. I do that every day as due course for my job. Now we got what I call these are my 2 favorite slides. I have become emotionally attached to these 2 slides.
As have I. I have a question, Craig. Are there really important things that if I don't put things in Sigma that I'm never going to hear from the state?
I'm glad you asked, Sean. There are 3 things that you absolutely need to do when you register for Sigma. You need to do your commodity codes, and we're very serious about this. This is a big one for us. So commodity codes are the only way the state of Michigan knows what goods or services you sell. And there's big list codes. We have them on our website. You can look them up outside of Sigma, but you need to associate those with your account. And Sigma will notify you if something comes up for bid based on your commodity codes, which brings us to the other thing. We don't have a slide for this one because this one's kind of in between the 2. The other thing that you got to do when you set up is put in an email address. You'd be amazed at how many people set up their account. They don't put in an email address, and make sure it's an email address you check, because Sigma can have multiple roles, and you can have people in your business checking it. Make sure it's an email address that you actually check, because Sigma is going to notify you if something's coming up for bid. that matches your commodity codes, which you definitely have put in. And then the business types. We need to know what kind of business you are. So another important step in registering for Sigma VSS is to add all applicable business types to your profile. This is very important because certain business types are eligible for purchasing programs, which Eric will talk to us a little bit about coming up. And examples include, and some other examples include service disabled and veteran-owned business preferences, or GDBEs, which we're going to talk about in a few more minutes. And I see Eric has his hand up, and I need a sip of water, so perfect timing.
Thank you, Craig. Just quick questions relates to commodity codes and business types. Is there a limit on how many commodity codes or business types that a vendor can add to their user account?
I'm glad you asked. No, there is not. You want to put in all applicable commodity codes. The joke I use, it's not old SMS text messaging. We are not charging 10% or 10 cents per code. Registering is free, and adding as many commodity codes as applicable is fine. And adding all the business types that are appropriate. You don't just pick one. If you find you're getting too many false positives, like you're getting spammed by Sigma because you put in too many commodity codes, you need to scale them back. And that's actually a good thing. Like you need to be going into Sigma regularly and keeping up on your codes and making sure they're still appropriate. Because if your business expands what it does, someone needs to go in and add those commodity codes so you're still in sync with yourself. And we preemptively asked, we answered a question in the chat. So
great. Thank you, Craig, for answering that question.
Yeah, so add your business types, because that's how the state knows what you sell and who you are, and makes you eligible for some programs. But yes, complete your registration. This is a big one. Like if you get very little or nothing out of today, this should be a takeaway. If you want to do business with the state, you need to be registered in Sigma. And if you're registered in Sigma, do what we call a complete job. You must register in Sigma to bid, enter in the commodity codes and an email address that you're checking to receive relevant bid notifications, and enter business types to be eligible for purchasing programs or preferences. And we got
Craig, we have a question in the Q&A inbox.
All right. Oh, yep. I'm looking at the chat, not the Q&A. Where do you get the commodity codes again? Commodity codes are on, we'll be showing a link to that website coming up, but it is on, they'll be in Sigma, but there's also a site, a page outside of Sigma where you can look them up. It's a little database. I'm a former state employee, and I worked at as a financial analyst. Are any contracted jobs posted on Sigma? So that's outside of like IT knowledge services, like your IT person, like in that space, that's knowledge services. I'm not sure. I can't answer a civil service question like that off the top of my head. I would assume that if the state has a contracting position or it was limited term, it would be posted on the state's website, but that might actually be a question for DIFs instead of us specifically. But our contracting for the IT stuff and the business analyst stuff, like that we listed on an earlier slide, that is what it is. How do I participate in a solicitation? So this is the bid process, right? Yeah, pre-bid meetings. So, and for anyone in the construction space, some are mandatory, especially in the construction space. So you've discovered a solicitation that interests you. Review the bid documents. That's the first thing you gotta do. I obviously read the bid. And determine if there is a pre-bid meeting, and if there is one, whether it's optional or mandatory. Presence at mandatory meetings is only requested of prime contractors. Subcontractors you can consider attending as well, not only to understand requirements, but you can take advantage of networking opportunities. For meetings that are mandatory, make sure you are on time and that you signed the sign-in sheet to prove that you were there. If you attend, you got to sign in. And definitely read the bid if there's a pre-bid meeting about how you get there. Sometimes they're on an island. That ferry's not coming back for you if you miss. You can literally miss the boat on this. Then after the pre-bid meeting, if there is one, we have a question and answer period, and this is a great opportunity to exchange info with the buyer. Answers to all vendor questions will be compiled and published for all bidders to see. So all the questions come in to the buyer, managing this bid, and then they'll be answered publicly. Follow the communication rules of the bid explicitly. Don't reach out to me. Don't be trying to sideline with the buyer or anything that can disqualify you. I have had vendors call me asking me questions and I immediately interrupt them. It's like, no, you need to go read the bid and follow those communication rules, because if you continue down this path, you might get disqualified. That's not to be too tough on you, but the rules should be spelled out, and it will say you need to ask questions, usually through Sigma or an email. And there's a deadline and then a lot of questions come in. There might be an addendum, and it may posted, and it may revise solicitation requirements if the state didn't get something right, or we need to clarify something that comes to light through Q&A. We'll post an addendum. And then the next one is to go through the question. You're ready to submit. Submit on time. I'm going to skip ahead to that bullet point. Submit on time. Don't last second this stuff, because we all live in the current era. Computers can be computers sometimes, and if you're trying to submit big files like 3 seconds before the bid closes, you might get locked out, because that system locks at when the bid closes, and you might not be able to submit. And then so make sure you don't last second stuff. Leave yourself some time, and submit on time. And respond to all bid details. When the state asks for something within a box, assume that there's going to be no two-way communication. Your main communication with the buyer is written. Like when we ask for a pricing schedule, you put in a pricing schedule. Don't say, see our website. Answer the question that is asked explicitly. I'm going to stump for this. We have a little YouTube video up. You can find it pretty readily on our website or on our Twitter account. That is our Chief Procurement Officer doing a top 10 presentation of these kind of things. Kind of tips for when you bid that walk you through this bid process. Definitely worth your time. So you've submitted your bid. All submitted bids are evaluated by the buyer and the requesting agency. So DNR or Eagle bid this out, they review it, and if we did it, we do it. Or something called a joint evaluation committee, also known as a JEC. JEC consists of a blend of members, those who have day-to-day interaction with the program, and independent reviewers who do not. This is an important fact to remember for new vendors and incumbents alike. You will be evaluated on your written content of your bid, as I mentioned in the last slide. And since there may not be any face-to-face meetings as part of the evaluation process, including negotiations, your bid must be thorough. The written portion of the bid is typically scored on a 100-point scale. As an example, 80 out of the possible 100 might be considered passing technical. So when you hear a state procurement professional talk about passing technical, that's what we're talking about. Receipt of passing technical means that your bid pricing will be evaluated. Review the proposal instructions of the solicitation documents carefully, because it may include customized evaluation criteria, Q&A deadline info, and information on any pre-bid meetings. Vendors may request a debrief after an award recommendation is made, and we want you to do that. Whether you win and we're awarded a contract or not, this is a great opportunity to meet with the solicitation manager and learn where you can improve your bid next time. We'll tell you about where you did good, where you did bad. You'll get an evaluation synopsis before that happens. Review that before you debrief to make the best use of the time. And this document will show how all the bidders were scored. We're going to talk about some purchasing preferences now. Does the state have any purchasing preferences? Yes. Spoiler alert. Yes. Let's review some of the purchasing preferences and set-asides established by the state by statute. First, qualified service disabled veteran-owned businesses receive a 10% pricing preference. A price preference is different than a set-aside. RFPs have a two-step process, and the preference is applied if technical bid requirements have been met. Information on how the preference is calculated and what documentation is required. It's on our website at michigan.gov/SDVOB. And the state, in lieu of those documents, if you are a member of the National Veterans Business Development Council, will accept that as verification of eligibility, but that is not required. It's an either or thing. This slide wins for the most acronyms said per slide. Also, certain goods and services are set aside for procurement from community rehabilitation organizations, sometimes called CROs. A CRO committee appointed by the governor evaluates set-aside requests. Competitive criteria, including a determination of fair market pricing, are applied to select among community rehab organizations for the purchase of goods or services. Some other purchasing preferences. We have the all things being equal preference. And I'm not going to read these all out, but if all things are equal, and we mean equal, like everything, absolutely everything, then we use these as tiebreakers. Michigan-based preference, clean corporate citizen preference, bio-based, etc. And when we say all things being equal, we mean everything. But this is the tiebreaker. This is how that is determined. Are there any purchasing programs with the state?
Before we do that one, we do have a question. It says, can you discuss entertainment services like singers, songwriters, performer, hosts? We don't really purchase, the state, we don't get to have a lot of fun. I don't know how much we would use those services. However, there should be some commodity codes that would line up with those. So there's no harm in getting registered in Sigma. I just can't think of anything right now where the state necessarily hires anything under those types of services, unless you guys can.
It would be my inclination, if that were a thing that we hired out for, it would either be part of an advertising and marketing pre-qual or an under $50,000 purchase for a very specific event.
Okay.
Yeah, just to add on to that, just because the needs of the state can vary from one year to the next. So just because you might go to Sigma and look at publicly posted bids and you don't see any opportunities related to what goods and services you provide, does not necessarily mean that the state would never procure that good or service, because the need of the state will change from one year to the next. And so because of that, we still would encourage you to consider registering as a vendor with the state and make sure all your commodity codes are up to date with relative to what goods and services you provide.
Yeah, that's great input, Eric. I think that's something definitely worth thinking about. Just because we're not buying it today doesn't mean we're not going to buy it tomorrow. Like, the needs change daily. And registering is free, so you might as well get in there and make sure you're checking your email and you have your commodity codes and business types in. are there any purchasing programs with the state? And the answer is yes. And this is where I'm going to kick it off to Eric, and he's going to talk about the Michigan supplier community.
Correct, thank you. So what I want to do is take a minute to talk to you about a program that may be available to your business, and that is the Michigan Supplier Community Program. Michigan Supplier Community Program, or MISC as we call it for short, because in government we love acronyms. It was developed by Central Procurement Services in 2019 in response to an executive directive that the governor signed, Executive Directive 2019-08, which directed the state's chief procurement officer to look at ways for the state to increase business opportunities and spend with businesses in low income and underutilized business areas. And out of that initiative, the MISC program was created. MISC is a informal solicitation process, and so because of that, bids will not be publicly posted. Instead, buyers will reach out to vendors directly and request pricing for services up to for all contracts up to $500,000. And so it can be really an advantageous program to be a part of if you're eligible. MISC is a free program to register for, and all you need to do is provide us with the appropriate information in Sigma as part of your Sigma vendor registration process. And to learn more about the Michigan Supplier Community Program, we do have a website. It's located at www.michigan.gov/MISC. So let's talk about program eligibility and qualifications. So vendors who are eligible to be part of the Michigan Supplier Community Program are as follows. If you are a business, if you are a Michigan-based business, which we'll talk about each one of these in further detail in the presentation, but if you're a Michigan-based business that is also also a small business, or meet the definition of a veteran-owned or service-disabled veteran-owned, as Craig discussed earlier under the Purchasing Preference Program, as well as if you're a Michigan-based business that meets the statutory definition of a community rehabilitation organization, or if you are a Michigan-based business that meets the governor's executive directive definition of a geographically disadvantaged business enterprise, then you're eligible to be a part of the Michigan Supplier Community Program. And so with that, let's talk a little bit more about each of these four eligibility categories in greater detail.
We have
your hand up. I'm sorry, I didn't see.
We have a really interesting question in the Q&A that will give some clarity.
Please,
yep.
Go ahead.
Does the MISC process operate outside of the competitive bidding process?
The answer to that question is yeah. Well, no, it's still a competitive bidding process, but it's an informal solicitation. So our formal solicitation is the posting of a RFP on the Sigma VSS website. However, if it's a MISC solicitation, then again, as a vendor, the buyer from the state will reach out to you directly, and they will request quotes for service, and they must obtain 3 quotes of service from MISC registered vendors. At a minimum, they can certainly reach out to more MISC registered vendors and receive more quotes for service from those vendors. But at a minimum, they must reach out and receive quotes for service from 3 MISC registered vendors, in which case at that point, they can evaluate and score those responses from those MISC registered vendors and then make an award. So it really streamlines the solicitation process. It also is a program designed to support small businesses because a lot of small businesses, as they're building up capacity and resources, they may not have the extra capacity or resources to develop and provide a full-blown response to an RFP. However, what most small business owners are very used to is providing postal services. And so MIS tries to remove as many barriers as we possibly can while still affording a competitive bidding process to assist small business owners, particularly those who have never done business with the state. It could be sometimes a daunting task to ask them. So MIS is designed to help them scale up as part of that process. Next slide, please.
I'm sorry, did you already review the small business, like what that means?
Well, we talk about it on the next slide. We talk about
got it.
each one of these categories.
Got it.
Yeah.
I'm still getting adjusted to this presentation.
So what is a GDB?
Oh. It looks like I just somehow muted you and I have no idea how. Are you there?
No, yeah, I'm here.
I was trying to
Sure.
mute myself and then I'm like, oh no, I muted the speaker.
Can we back up one more slide? So looking ahead, yeah, I think we do need to expound on the definition of a small business.
No worries.
So,
Okay, there you go.
So as you asked, how do we define a small business for purposes of the Michigan Smart Community Program? And the answer is we define a small business as a business based here in the state of Michigan. And we define that as a business where your principal location is domiciled here in the state, somewhere in the state of Michigan, and you have annual revenues of less than $25 million, and you have less than 500 full-time employees. And that's very much intentional. So we use a very broad definition of a small business as compared to some other states in the country. But again, that's in the spirit of this program and the governor's executive directive. We're trying to cast as wide of a net as possible to increase the number of vendors who can participate in the state bidding process. And again, we want to support as many Michigan-based businesses as possible. So that is our definition of a small business for the Michigan Smart Community Program. Okay, now we can talk a little bit more about a term that you may not be familiar with, but comes directly out of the governor's executive directive, and that is GDBE, or Geographically Disadvantaged Business Enterprise, and what that is and whether or not your business qualifies as a GDBE for the state of Michigan. So what is a Geographically Disadvantaged Business Enterprise, or GDBE? And again, as I mentioned earlier, it comes right out of the governor's executive directive 2019-08, and it defines a GDB as being one of the following: that you have received HubZone Small Business Certification from the U.S. Small Business Administration, or your principal place of business is not only located here in the state of Michigan, but it's also located in a qualified opportunity zone as defined by the United States Secretary of Treasury, or the majority of your employees either work within or maintain their principal place of residence in a QOZ. So if you are an enterprise and you meet, you're based in the state of Michigan and you meet one of these three eligibility criteria, then you are eligible to register with the state as a geographically disadvantaged business enterprise. Please note that when you're registering in Sigma, and if you meet one of these qualifications as a GDB and you're looking to register in Sigma as one, please note that there is no single business type that you can find in Sigma right now where you can check and say, yes, I am a geographically disadvantaged business enterprise. Rather, all you have to do is select the criteria that apply. So if you are a Michigan-based business, you will select that business type in Sigma. And if you've received HubZone certification from SBA, you would also select that business type. By selecting both of those, it will inform us on our end of Sigma that you are a geographically disadvantaged business enterprise. Likewise, if you are a Michigan-based business and you are located in one of the state's qualified opportunity zones, you would again select those two business types. And again, the system would notify us that you are a geographically disadvantaged business enterprise. So I just wanted to touch on that because sometimes that can be a little confusing for some vendors who are trying to register, who are eligible to be part of the MIS program, who meet the definition of a GDBE, and they're trying to register, but they are having trouble doing so. Next slide, please. So we've also provided some tools to you if you are interested in registering as a Michigan supplier community vendor as a GDBE. And we provide some tools on our website that will that can help you make that determination if you qualify. The first of those tools is a map to all the qualified opportunity zones here in the state of Michigan. This map is essentially a Google-based map. So if you're used to Google Maps interface, but it's a geocoded with all the address in the state of Michigan, as well as all of the eligible census tracts in counties that have been designated by the United States Secretary of the Treasury as a qualified opportunity zone. And so using this tool, all you would need to do is enter in your address and select the search button, and the map will locate your position here in the state of Michigan, and you'll see if your principal place of business is located in a QOZ district or not. If you use this tool and you are located in a qualified opportunity zone and you're interested in being a part of the Michigan Supply Community Program as a GDBE, all you have to do is then log into Sigma. If you have an existing account, or register in Sigma as a new vendor and select that you are located in a QOZ, and then the system again will notify us that you are a geographically disadvantaged business enterprise. Next slide, please. Then to mention this earlier, you could also qualify for the Michigan Supply Community Program if you go through SBA's Hub Zone certification process and obtain Hub Zone certification. Working with the SBA office in Detroit, we know that there's any given year, anywhere from 100 to 150 Hub Zone certified businesses in the state at any given time. And that number will fluctuate from one year to the next based on the number of new businesses who obtain certification, as well as the number of existing businesses who go through the recertification process. And so that number can fluctuate, but roughly within the state, the total number of Hub certified zone businesses are going to fall within that range of 100 to 150 vendors. To learn more about it, if you're interested in being part of that, we provided a link to SBA's website here in Detroit, and I'm sure that Sarah and her team is more than happy to assist you in that endeavor. And with that, I will turn it over. Sean, will you be walking us through this, or will Craig be doing this?
I can start it. I think this kind of gets to where we've got our website. So the slide is asking, are there any organizations that can help on my business? And absolutely, you're already knocking it out of the park because you're working with SBAM. So excellent job. And we probably should get you guys added to the slide. So we have many organizations that help vendors in Michigan. We work closely with Apex Accelerators, and you may have formerly heard them referred to as PTAX. And so you can go to www.miapex.org, and they support regionally. So you're going to want to find the one that supports your area. But they have been a great resource for us because sometimes with just a few of us on our team, it's hard to get out there and meet with all the vendors, but they do a really good job of meeting regionally and offering events and just one-on-one conversations with vendors to help get registered to do state business. They also are helping do government business, with the federal government. Great resource. You'll also see the Small Business Administration. small business development centers, Vet Biz Central, and then the National Veterans Business Development Council. So these are all available to you. And let's see what else we've got. So, is there a website that I should visit to see resources? And this is something that the three of us have worked really hard on, and we're excited to share that we do have a new website that launched this year. This is a screenshot of the Contract Connect webpage. But what you're going to want to do is venture over to the Let's Do Business website. And that's what we're going to focus on now. Okay. So here's a screenshot of our new page. There's even more resources there now than what you see in front of you, because we've got some new videos that were created that'll appear as when you first pop in there. But this is a screenshot of the hub page. We highly recommend that you bookmark this and come back to it from time to time to see more vendor resources as they become available. You can jump right to our Let's Do Business address by going to michigan.gov/Let's Do Business. And so we built it out. So we kind of refer to it as the 3 R's. We've got Register My Business. That's a great spot to go to if you haven't even started the process to get signed up in Sigma, which, as they have mentioned, is the platform for posting bids. Then there's the resources for vendors. Someone who was asking in our Q&A box about videos or resources that we have. You can pop in there and see presentations and videos. So, like, for example, you'll see a sample of the presentation we're giving today in there in both a PowerPoint slide as well as recorded. And on the far right are going to be research opportunities. So let's first chat about the Register My Business. There are 2 really important things to highlight here. First is the business type. That is where you're going to go if you want to look at all the different business types that we have as types that you could add to your profile in Sigma. Craig spoke about that one as well as the commodity page. So the business types helps us understand who you are. And then the commodity codes are going to help us understand what you sell, what you do. So when you go to that commodity codes page, you can actually type in what your services are, what your products are, and it's going to give you the codes that you can then take over to the website in Sigma and enter. Looks like we've got questions coming in. Let's see. Can any of the resources in the vendor toolkit be used to forecast opportunities? Well, we've got that coming. You've read our mind.
That feels like a plan, because that's.
I know. Okay, so please hold. I'll get through this section and then I'll show you under research opportunities. So again, if you're brand new and you're still learning how to get signed up in Sigma, also go to the how to register as a vendor, because it's a great resource just to walk you through what's needed, and it'll get you over to the resource page that the Sigma team created. There's also a new user checklist, which is really handy, so that instead of having to go back and forth between your records and Sigma's records that you're setting up, it's a checklist to let you know exactly what you need in order to set your profile up. You're going to make sure you have everything you need so you can get it all done in one setting. Well, and we talk about, you got to register and you've got resources, but research opportunities. So, you want a contract, you want to win a contract with the state, you need to do your homework. And the research opportunities is a great place for you, because you can look at a variety of things, including our active contracts. You can look at bid proposals. There's the GDBE resource page that we have, just kind of explaining what it is, as well as the MISC program page, open bids. So there's a lot in here, and I'm going to do some detailed information on the next few slides. So this is a snapshot of our contract list, and you can use this. I think Craig normally goes over this, but I'm going to do my best. He's really good at it. You can use the filters and search boxes to find particular contracts. By clicking on the link icon, you can download or view a PDF version of each contract. You'll be able to review the entire contract, including the current specifications, what is this contract for, change notices, and pricing. And change notices are going to let you know what updates were done to the contract. Craig, you have a question?
Not a question, more of a comment.
Okay.
2 things. We have moved around some of the columns. So the link will be all the way on the left now. We
Good call.
We need to update our screenshot. I I wouldn't expect Sean to know that because I am actually the one who did that with our technology and reporting team. The other tip that I would give people is, because it's a very specific Microsoft interface. That little eraser button next to the search in those various search boxes, use that and it will reset that box. For some reason, Microsoft decided that just deleting it wouldn't do a hot refresh. So you have to hit that little eraser button yourself. That tripped me up for a few weeks. I'm like, oh, that's an eraser. Okay. Yeah, and then we have a question. I feel this is actually a pretty good time to answer it.
Yeah.
Department of Natural Resources gift shop procurement, is that procured via Sigma? One thing you can do is you can look through this contract list and see if that is something that is actively being contracted for. And if it is not, there might be like it might be one of those things where we have a contract out for managing gift shops generally, but not for the merchandise within the gift shops. And you might want to reach out to the vendor that is currently running gift shops, or what you sell might fall under that $50,000 threshold, and you'd want to be reaching out directly to DNR buyers, which that lists on our website.
Thank you, Craig. I was just going to mention the buyer list, but thank you for mentioning that.
It's like we've been doing this for a while.
I think. And I don't think you mentioned that you can scroll back and forth, or did you?
Yeah, you can scroll left and right too.
Yep. Because it doesn't all fit on there.
We moved all the important stuff's on the left. There is other, I don't want to say less important, but less salient, less immediately salient info is to the right, like the spend and that kind of stuff. But the link and the contact number and the vendor, that's going to be on the left.
Craig, did you explain the value column as well?
Value column is estimated spend at the time of the contract award for all base years. Base years, that's important. And it's not reflective of actual spend, which may be more, or which may be less. It also includes the monetary value of any subsequent change notices. So if we have to do a change notice, update a contract, that value change. It does not include option years. And the expiration date, and let's talk about option years. Sean, you're off the hook. I'm back in. We can talk about option years. So the expiration date, there are option years in each contract that can extend that expiration beyond it. Like say we have 4 1-year options, and something expires in August 2024. If we exercise those options, that could take us all the way out to August 2028. Those will be clearly listed, right? They're almost always, with very few exceptions, right on the front page of the contract, or whatever top change notice you are seeing. And now we're going to answer directly the question that was asked in the Q&A most recently. We're going to talk about the weather.
Right, but before that, I have a hot tip. So let's say you're a smaller vendor. You're not necessarily ready to take on a full contract with the state after going and looking and seeing what's out there. You may consider contacting some of our existing state contract holders about the opportunity to serve as a subcontractor on their state contract. I think they are keeping an eye out for local State of Michigan businesses, especially if they're maybe not a State of Michigan contract holder and they're outside of here, then I think there's an even better opportunity for you to possibly serve as a subcontractor. So keep that in mind by looking through this list, looking at the description to see if there's any vendors that hold a contract that you could possibly support, and reach out to them because their contact information is on that contract. All right, now the weather forecast, which I wish I had known this morning it was going to storm as bad as it did. But I somehow missed that weather forecast. But we have a contracting forecast. And I think we've been joking about wanting to rename it, and we haven't found a really fun name yet, but it is definitely a contract forecast. So you want to check out the vendor opportunity dashboard found under the research opportunities page that I was showing you previously. It lists out upcoming planned projects and projects anticipated to be going out for bid. It's found next to the DTB complete contract list, which we discussed at the beginning of this presentation. Actually just a minute ago. So really cool opportunity just to go through and see what we are looking to do, whether it is going to be a rebid or a brand new contract that we've not had before. So go in there and you can play with that, but that's right there on the resource page. Got a chat. How do we get more details about DTMB next 2025 proposed budget?
Well, I can attempt to answer that.
Okay, I'm like, maybe
So
he can tell us more.
So the state budget fiscal year, the state fiscal year begins October 1st and runs to September 30th, 2025. So right now we're in fiscal year 24, which will end at the end of next month. And come October 1, we'll be in fiscal year 2025. So the fiscal year for the budget, DTV's budget for fiscal year 2025 has already been adopted by the state legislature and signed by the governor earlier this summer. And because it is a state law, it's available for public record and public has access to it. And so you would have to actually go to the Michigan legislature's website and you can find that piece of legislation and download it, and it'll have not just the budget DTMB, but the budget for every state department for fiscal year 2025, which begins October 1 of this year.
Yeah, and what I would also add to that is, and the reason I know this is very specific because I've had to fill in due to staff outages, is DTMB will post on their newsroom, so michigan.gov/DTMB. They have like a little news feed, and they'll post like budget stuff there, like state budget's office news releases and stuff. They post their news releases right on their website. So if you're really interested in keeping up with that, I've definitely seen budget type news releases posted there and on the state budget office's website. Kind of and since I'm talking, I can just go through this slide also.
Cool.
So just a quick review. Purchasing offices, we got DTMB Central Procurement Services. That's us. Hi. We handle IT, commodities, and professional services. We have those divisions in our house. And we set the purchasing policy. And then we have our DTMB Real Estate and Design and Construction divisions. No surprises here. They handle real estate and design and construction purchasing. Then we have the state agencies who we have delegated authority to for those under $500,000 purchases, with the exceptions for DHHS and for direct human services purchasing. For those like medical professionals and counselors and pharmacists and those kind of things. There's some exceptions there. They're not particularly controversial. Like sometimes we will up the delegated authority amount to a department when they are the subject matter expert of the thing they are buying. Opportunities in research. So you're ready to get into it. Where do you go? Sigma VSS, get registered. Put in your commodity codes. Put in your business types. Definitely put in an email address that you're checking. Then go to our Let's Do Business website. That kind of walks you through everything. It's a hub. We designed that to be a hub. It will take you to all these pages that will give you all your info. Yeah, it looks like Sean's going to start live demoing that. So let's do that. Look at our contract list that shows you what's up, or shows you what's in place. It'll give you a great idea of what we buy. Vendor opportunity dashboard, great idea of what's coming up next. And then you bid on something, you win it, you don't win it, you're awarded, not awarded, doesn't matter. Get a debrief. Talk to the purchasing professional that evaluated your bid and learn how you can make it better next time around. State has a selfish interest in doing that because we want the best bids possible. We want to be spoiled for choice. We want you to do as good of a job as you can. And we're going to empower that by offering you a free debrief. This is just some contact info. I'm not going to read all of this out. If you need to get a hold of us, this is how you get a hold of us. I'm here to answer questions. That is my job. So if you have any questions, you're like, how does this process work again? Definitely reach out. we're here to help. And then Sean's
Here's
showing off
just a
some of our
live
resources.
shot. Yep. So yeah, just a live shot of our, the new hub that we created, the Let's Do Business, just to try to put everything in one place for you, so it's easier to locate everything. This is one of our new little videos that we did, just trying to grow awareness about our, purchasing opportunity with the GDBE, Geographically Disadvantaged Business Enterprise. This is the screenshot that I had shown on our slides. You got Register My Business. You can check out the business types page, the commodity code page. Those are two very important pages, as well as your Sigma access, and then some great resources here. Highly recommend signing up to get emails from us about contract opportunities. So you would just click this link and it's going to give you access to sign up. I know we are out of time, so I better pause and let Sarah step in.
No, that was so helpful and thorough. I do think we answered, oh, well, a question might have just come in. Oh, please show the contact info
There you
again.
go.
Thank you for going back to that slide. And just a reminder that we will send out this, the slides and the recording to everybody who registered. So you'll have this in your inbox within the next 24 hours. So thank you all so much. That was so helpful and thorough, and I know it'll be a great resource to the people on the call today and those who find it on our website later. So again, thank you very much to the team at the State of Michigan, and thanks for everybody who joined us today. And unless you have anything else, Sean, I think we'll be concluded.
I appreciate the opportunity, everybody. Thanks for joining us.
All right, thanks all. Have a great day.
Thank
You
you.
too. Thank you.